To stick around, look at that coming up.
All right, Brett, thank you. This morning, only on KSL, we're hearing from the family of the 19-year-old man killed in a home explosion. Parts of the Elk Ridge home blew apart without warning on Friday.
Yeah, news specialist Shelby Lofton now has that story.
The Utah County Sheriff's Office said they're still investigating what led up to this explosion, but they still believe this was an accident. The family of 8 who lived inside this home lost a 19-year-old son and brother, Eric Cheney. We spoke to his heartbroken parents.
It's hard to see it.
Julie and John Cheney sit in front of the cracks left behind by an explosion that rattled their house.
We came running out and there was so much damage everywhere.
And changed their lives forever.
There were people walking across the street and they were actually saw him there and that's how I found out he was hurt.
They had no idea their 4th son, Eric, was home in the driveway.
It blew him into our garage and then our garage door fell on him.
They're choosing to focus on what reminds them of Eric.
He really enjoyed spending time with, his brothers and sisters, for sure. Even Adam, who's, 7 years younger than him.
A star athlete.
He was on the tennis team, varsity, top player. He was the varsity volleyball, one of the lead players. He did motocross.
With a sharp memory.
He'd be like, oh, remember, Mom? That's this person, and here's their parents, and this is their dog's name.
He had his whole life ahead of him.
He had just started a really good job that he loved in the construction field.
The Cheneys said their son was thinking about going on a church mission.
He was just living life.
His father will remember talks around the kitchen table.
To not have him, lightening the mood and, teasing a little bit. We'll definitely miss him.
His mother will miss his hugs.
Sometime in high school, someone said, if you have 8-second hugs, you release dopamine, right? So he'd come home and he'd give me a hug and he'd say, no, Mom, it's not 8 seconds yet.
The Cheneys now have extensive property damage to pay for on top of these funeral costs for Eric. We have included a link to a GoFundMe that will help out this family on our website, KSL-TV.com. In Utah County, Shelby Lofton, KSL 5 News.
Shelby, thank you for this story. There are a lot of prayers headed their way. An Ogden family.
KSL Today starts now.
A community mourning the loss of a young man after a deadly house explosion. What we know about the 19-year-old who was killed.
Scary moments at a Salt Lake City. Coming up.
He really enjoyed spending time with, his brothers and sisters, for sure. Even Adam, who's, 7 years younger than him.
The parents of a young man killed in an Elk Ridge home explosion remembering their son this morning.
This morning, we're also hearing from a neighbor who was home when that explosion happened.
And news specialist Kara Bracken now joins us live to talk about what happened. Again, we get the response from the family, which is devastation. Do we know what happened to cause this, Kara?
Good morning, Dan, Laura. Yeah, that neighbor says that they could smell the smoke, they could hear that, and they were home, of course, during that explosion. Now, they do say that by the time that they realized that there's that smell of gasoline and they were trying to turn it off on the side of the house, they realized someone was missing.
Like a plume of mist, smoke, whatever you want to call it, over that direction.
He says the windows rattled and describes hearing a big boom over at his neighbors, the Cheneys, who lost their 4th son, Eric.
See the color leave her face when she realized Eric was missing. It was just...
He'd been home in the driveway when the explosion happened, blowing him into the garage with the garage door falling on him. A family of 8, Eric was 19 years old. The Cheney family is going to remember their son and brother as someone who loved family. Their next door neighbor agrees, saying before the explosion, Eric was helping out his dad. Now, that said, the neighbor says there were also 2 vehicles that were parked out front. They were also smashed during that explosion. There was also debris that made its way out onto the street and onto the golf course nearby, guys.
It's a tough story, and no doubt they've got a lot of thoughts and prayers headed their way for the Cheney family. Thank you for that, Kara. Well, a Salt Lake City bookstore shut its doors for the...
You're watching KSL News at 4.
Thanks for being with us. We have continuing coverage on that suspicious package investigation that forced police to evacuate the U.S. Bank Tower in downtown Salt Lake.
Now that's where news specialist Brianna Chavez is. And Brandon, we understand you spoke with some employees earlier today. I'm sure quite the mess for them. What are they telling you about this experience?
Yeah, Dan, actually, they were actually waiting in the area, hoping to get their cars back. Obviously, the U.S. Bank Tower evacuated because of that suspicious item that police were investigating. But thankfully, as you can see around me, it's all clear. Police, again, giving the all clear earlier today. And as we've been reporting throughout the day, police have been investigating a suspicious item in an alley near 20th West and 200 South just before 8 this morning. Now, we now know, again, that it was an organic agricultural material. Now, they gave the all clear just before 2:30, and the men that I spoke to say it was business as usual for them despite police blocking off the area. They say they felt pretty safe and were getting updates throughout the day, but when they were getting ready to head to lunch, that's when they got the notice to evacuate.
And I think it's good that they're taking, what they feel are the necessary procedures. It's a little strange that it took that long from 8 o'clock when they started the whole thing. You would have thought that maybe they would have had us all leave at that time, but I think there's just so much uncertainty that they just are going through their procedure. And
now, it wasn't just employees who were impacted as well. Trax riders, they were also experiencing some delays this afternoon. But again, the good news is the blue and green lines are running as usual now that the Gallivan Plaza stop is back open. So UTA was tweeting just about an hour ago that they could experience 15 to 20-minute delays. But it looks like things, again, are moving smoothly. I can see a Trax coming this way. But again, guys, police obviously taking the necessary precautions because of this investigation. I'll send it over back to you.
Yeah, quite the operation out there. Thanks a lot, Brianna Chavez, live for us there. We now turn to the crisis on
KSL Live at 5 starts now.
Threat neutralizing robots and dozens of police officers, including bomb squads, swarmed the U.S. Bank Tower in downtown Salt Lake City today, coordinating an evacuation that took several hours after a suspicious package was found in the alley.
Now, police did determine that this did not pose a threat, but boy, did it make such a mess for people downtown. We, of course, have team coverage tonight. Let's first go to Brianna Chavez with reaction from people who had to work through all of this today. Brianna?
Yeah, guys, I spoke to several people at Gallivan Plaza, many of them coming up to me asking what was going on earlier today. Some people trying to get to work, others just trying to pass through Main Street. And I spoke to two people who actually work at the U.S. Bank Tower behind me. They told me that their day started out pretty normal despite police blocking off this area. They say they actually felt pretty safe as well, thankfully, and were getting updates throughout the day. But when they were headed to lunch, that's actually when they got the notice from law enforcement to evacuate. One man I spoke to says it was a bit of an inconvenience for him since he had to kind of stick around and wait for his car in order to get home. But thankfully, police gave the all clear around 2:30 today.
yeah, I mean, they gave us the option to leave, whether we would have been able to get our vehicles out. But once they knew what was going on, they just said, this is what's going on. If you want to leave, you can, or you can stay and see what happens. And so we just chose to stay.
Now, it wasn't just employees working here downtown who were impacted. The Gallivan Plaza track stop was also closed off. So UTA announcing throughout the day for Trax riders that the blue and green lines would be delayed. So if you took the tracks this morning, you obviously felt that. Thankfully, that stop is now open and things are moving smoothly. I've seen the tracks coming and going pretty normal. And we actually spoke to a couple visiting from New York. They just got here, got to their hotel and noticed what was going on. We'll have their reaction coming up at 6. For Live at 5, I'm Brianna Chavez.
All right, Brianna, we will see you at 6 with that reaction. Again, Salt Lake not normally looking like this, but this is what they experienced today.
That's right, and we want to continue our team coverage right now. Let's get on over to Lauren Steinbrecher, who's been out there all day long. Lauren, what can you tell us from here?
KSL News at 6 starts now.
A person did leave this in a manner that was very suspicious.
And I don't want to touch it if it could be something dangerous. It's funny because when we walked outside, in the hotel, they didn't tell us anything that was going on. They just said you can't walk that way.
Tonight, calm finally returns to downtown Salt Lake City after a suspicious object prompted evacuations right in the heart of the city.
It caused some major disruptions with lingering effects this evening, and there are still questions about how this all happened.
We begin our team coverage.
Yeah, still a lot of unanswered questions. Thanks a lot, Lauren.
Yeah, and downtown commuters are still facing lots of delays tonight because of this incident.
News specialist Brianna Chavez continues our team coverage live with some of the reaction that took place out there. Brianna.
Yeah, guys, well, I spoke to some employees that were actually evacuated from this U.S. Bank Tower earlier today. They were actually waiting in the area, hoping to get the all clear and get their cars back so they could go home. Now, they tell me that during this entire ordeal, they actually felt pretty safe. They say it was a normal day at work despite police blocking off the area. They were getting updates throughout the day, but then as they were heading to lunch, that's when they got notice to evacuate the building. Also saw several people at Gallivan Plaza, not too far away, being stopped by police as they were trying to walk through Main Street earlier. Many people curious as to what was going on, some people even taking pictures. We spoke to one couple that was visiting from, or is visiting, I should say, from New York, who arrived at their hotel as police were investigating.
I'm a fire chief in New Jersey, so it's fun to be on the civilian side for a change, to see what's going on and watch the boys working.
We're accustomed to kind of seeing things happening, but it's so quiet here, and it just doesn't feel threatening at all. So whatever's going on, they're taking care of it.
And Trax riders also experiencing some delays this afternoon. The good news, though, tonight is that the blue and green lines are running as usual now that Gallivan Plaza stop is back open. So things are looking pretty normal right now here at Main and 200 South. No other major delays that we've been seeing. But the good news tonight, guys, is that police obviously took the steps to make sure that everyone was safe in this area. Back to you.
Yeah, a lot of people affected in this one. Thanks a lot, Brianna. Well, we will continue, of course, to track developments in this tense situation.